But the big difference is that the Ukrainians are fighting for a cause they believe in, which is their nation and their land, their families. And the Russian soldiers, many of whom are conscripts, don't quite know why they're there.
Yes.
And know that they don't want to be there.
Now, let me say a welcome to Drive to the former Labour Foreign Secretary, Jack Straw. Hello, Jack.
Hi.
Now, your thoughts then, support for the war among the British population, a point that I discussed with Liam Fox earlier on. That support in Britain is strong. There's British support for a defiant line when it comes to Russia. Is there a worry in your heart, in your mind, about how long that would endure, whether it needs to be reinforced as time goes by? Because as we get deeper into our cost of living crisis, energy prices continuing to spike as the nights draw in and so on, will that British mood of resolution be tested to the point that it will need support?
Well, I don't think so, John, because it is remarkable the extent to which the British people and the British political system, well, all the four parties, including the SNP, have been supporting this action. But you make an important point about the fact that as the cost of living crisis really starts to bite, and it will do really from Friday when the energy regulator announces the increase in the cap just for this autumn, and then there's going to be a further whopping great hike later. I think that the cost of living crisis will come to dominate the airwaves even more than it has been. And what's important, I mean, that's obviously a crucial issue and one of major political contention domestically. Mm. What's also important, however, is that the Ukraine conflict and the brutal and unprovoked aggression by Russia remains in the headlines. Yes. Because for sure, if it isn't, then popular support will tend to wane just because people aren't noticing it. But at least your previous speaker was talking about Germany. I mean, Scholz, I think, is trying to do his best, and he certainly reversed decades of policy, which was basically about cozying up to the Russians in one speech a couple of days after the invasion, which was really important. But what's significant in Germany is that you've got vocal oppositions on the far right and the far left, both campaigning for an end to sanctions against Russia. So there is a wider range of opinion in Germany. And of course, the Germans made this now really stupid decision to place all their energy eggs in one basket, which was Russian gas abandoning their quite good nuclear power stations as a sort of panic reaction to what had happened in Japan. Yeah. And now they're paying the price, and there is panic now taking place in Germany about the not just about the increase in prices, but also about whether they will be able to get gas at all, energy at all, come the winter.
Now, Jack, I realise it goes without saying, really, that if you were in office now as a Labour Foreign Secretary, we wouldn't be, as it were, here. We wouldn't be starting from here. But looked at it from outside, as it were, objectively, is there an opportunity here for the UK, Jack, to cement relationships with Europe and maybe with the USA, which are clearly on other fronts strained? I'm thinking in particular of the Northern Ireland Protocol, arguments about Brexit and the border.
Well, I think there is. No, I certainly wouldn't be starting from here. And it's fair to say a lot of Conservative MPs who supported Remain, and quite a lot of others who supported a sensible Brexit, but not the one we've ended up with, would also not be starting from here. But for sure, there's been a gratuitous disruption in relations with the European Union. And a consequence of that has been to weaken our influence in the United States as well. One of the reasons of many why we had very significant influence during the Thatcher period and the Blair-Brown period and the early years of David Cameron was not only because we're natural allies, particularly on defense and intelligence with the United States, but also because we were often able to deliver the European Union into a position agreed with the US Now we've lost that traction, and we didn't need to. Brexit I was opposed to, but it didn't have to lead to this situation. So yes, I hope whoever becomes Conservative Prime Minister, it looks is going to be Liz Truss, ends this damages, self-wounding, aggressive approach to Europe, and particularly to the Northern Ireland Protocol. I mean, I know there are defects there, and the Irish recognise there are defects to it, but changes need to be agreed. And the Irish entirely right to say, Boris Johnson, with the full support of his cabinet, signed up to this protocol. This was not an historic document which they had nothing to do with.
And let me just ask you finally a strategic question, because the war in Ukraine is clearly having the effect of degrading Russia's military machine. It's exposing the shortcomings of that machine. And in that way, it is a big strategic gain for the West, and without loss of life among Western allies. And in that way, the conflict in Ukraine is serving a strategic purpose to the West. I'm not suggesting anyone's consciously seeking to prolong the war for that strategic reason, but it is a fact, isn't it?
Well, it is, but it's a consequence of Vladimir Putin's aggression and error in invading Ukraine, betting that the majority of the population would, in a sense, react as say the Austrians did when Hitler invaded Austria in 1938, and some opposed the invasion, but they basically said, well, okay. Now that hasn't happened here, and by all accounts, Vladimir Putin is blaming his intelligence services for feeding him inaccurate intelligence. But he claims to have a considerable understanding of the Russian Empire and wider Russian history, as well as of more recent history. He should have known that for himself, and that if you allow a nation, Ukraine, to become independent, which the Soviet Union did, agreed to it internationally 31 years ago, and that gradually develops its own sense of nationhood. Another country coming in with tanks and artillery pieces to blast its way to control is going to be unacceptable, and that's exactly what's happened. Yeah. And so, and the difficulty for Putin, he has got, I mean, being no doubt, he's got much more material still than the Ukrainians, and many more boots on the ground potentially available. But the big difference is that the Ukrainians are fighting for a cause they believe in, which is their nation and their land, their families. And the Russian soldiers, many of whom are conscripts, don't quite know why they're there.
Yes.
And know that they don't want to be there.
Okay, Jack, it's always good to get your thoughts. Jack Straw there, former
Thank you very much.
Foreign Secretary.